we're seeing so many girls and women who have put on the pill. I had someone tell me she was put on the pill at 8 years old because she was getting migraines. Oh yeah. Didn't even have a period. Yes. So she was getting migraines. And so these are the solutions that we're throwing at girls and women. And to me, that's almost unconscionable because their bodies are, I don't even know what happened. She was barely able to even get her hormones online. And so we're seeing this younger and younger. And what are the long-term consequences of that? So I think, as a society, as parents, if you have a teenager, it requires you to ask questions and potentially make hard decisions about making changes.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Courtney. I'm here with Dr. Motley, and we have an amazing guest that I know personally. I love this woman. She's brilliant. Her name is Nicole Jardim. She is a certified women's health coach, a writer, a speaker, and the author of Fix Your Period, 6 Weeks to Banish Bloat, Conquer Cramps, Manage Moodiness, and Ignite Lasting Hormone Balance. She's the founder of the Institute of Menstrual Health. This program offers trainings and resources for not just US, but international communities for practitioners and coaches. And she's also the host of the Period Party podcast, which is wildly popular. She's been featured on so many other platforms that I'm sure you're familiar with, like Well and Good, Mind Body Green, and Healthline. She is an incredible expert in the field of women's hormones and health. And I also just love her personally. So I'm always stoked to have a friend on the podcast. So Nicole, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with both of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, it's really great to have you. And I didn't know that you and Courtney were like really close BFFs, but thank you so much for joining us. I hope I can add some input on this subject matter for all of you out there, but I'll try to add some nerd Chinese medicine aspects of it. So thank you again, though, for joining us. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. Yes, I can't wait for your input. I think we're going to have a great conversation.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun, guys. It's going to be fun. Go ahead, Courtney. I just cut you off.
I was just thinking, so Nicole and I were in St. George, Utah, like a few months ago. So like we've kind of known each other, but we got to actually meet. We were like hiking and like all kinds of fun stuff. But you were actually out west the same time, Chris. And so
I know.
we kept trying to get you. You were like an hour away. We could have.
I know.
Had.
Okay.
There was potential there.
I would have come out and Courtney and I talked about that, about coming out to the next doTERRA and, essential oil meeting. And I was literally like an hour away and I should have come up there. But there was some funny stories that happened to me in that area near there. And I'll fill you guys in later. We'll get right to the chase, but I wish I could have met you. Oh, yeah. It was pretty fun, like literally out in the middle of nowhere in the desert. And I was kind of wondering about some of the not say that I hate to use the word type of individuals in that area, but they said you had to be kind of careful in that area out in the desert. And when Courtney had called, I literally could not make any connection except this one area was at the top of the hill where we were at. But I'll save that for another time. But there was they told you, you have to watch your back because people around this area, they have their own, they do some seedy stuff. So anyway, it was a fun time, but we shot videos for I play some music for a band, and I don't know why I'm talking about this right now, but we were out in the middle of the desert, Nicole, and I was playing a little flamenco guitar and just, watching out for rattlesnakes. In fact, one of the times the guy that we were staying at this big ranch, he goes, if you go over by the hay bales, you guys can shoot a part of the video over here. And he said, but there's these small green snakes that look like gardener snakes. And I was like, okay, well, he said, just, they'll be around the area over here. He goes, but don't let it bite you. I was like, why? He goes, you drop dead in about 2 minutes. I was like, I'm not going over there to shoot a video. What are you talking about? No, I'm not going over there. So I just hung out with the horses. So that was good.
My gosh.
Guys, I'm so sorry to take this podcast away.
You had a way more exciting time out west than the two of us did.
That is true. That is true.
We
had fun, but we didn't have that kind of excitement.
Okay. Yeah. We're going to catch up on this. And Nicole, it's about you. So let's talk about all things hormones.
I mean, perfect.
The listeners
segue
out
into
there.
hormones.
Sorry, guys.
100%. I mean, completely related.
Well, okay. I mean, I'm sure most people didn't know that Dr. Motley is in a band and plays.
Oh, stop.
I mean, well, listen, we're all just learning each other a little better, and I'm just glad Nicole's along for the ride. So, but
I'm thoroughly enjoying this.
Segue into hormones because we're all gathered here today to learn about
witness
and hormones. We're really goofy right now. It's a Friday.
It's great. It is Friday. It's true.
Okay, so Nicole. Here's the thing. Women's hormones are an absolute disaster for the most part for many women. I mean, it's just insane. I don't know that I talked to one woman who isn't complaining at some point or another about how miserable she feels or how she just feels like, I do not understand what is happening to my body, but things are clearly not well. So what are you seeing as a professional in this space that you're like, oh man, we got to pay attention, guys. Like this is a big problem.
Yeah, I think you touched on the most important point, which is that women generally feel terrible and they have no idea why. And I think that there's such a lack of understanding of the fact that hormones play a role in and basically have an impact on every process in the body, essentially. So there are all kinds of imbalances that can show up and are showing up these days. And I feel like for me, over the last decade, I've seen most commonly the period-related symptoms. So heavy periods, painful periods, irregular cycles, long cycles, short cycles, like those are the big things that show up. And then also on the flip side of that, cycles that don't really come at all. Or you either have a super irregular cycle or you just don't get a period. And that can be for many reasons too. And then the big conditions like endometriosis and uterine fibroids and polyps and ovarian insufficiency or, premature ovarian failure is what it's known as in some circles. So a number of conditions that they're so rampant. And I think one of the fundamental problems that I've come across in my work is that women aren't educated about what's normal, right? So they have no idea what's normal for their bodies and their cycles. And therefore they don't know what to look for. They don't know how to advocate for themselves. They're just sort of in the dark. And I think that really education about menstrual cycles is so, so important. I feel like we're all so undereducated and in many cases over-medicated. And so I think that's one of the biggest issues that we're running into is that nobody really understands. Like when I think back about, to the time when I was a teenager, I was put on the pill and I had heavy periods, painful periods, and then they started coming every 3 or 4 months. And I, of course, had no idea what was causing any of this. But when my doctor said, oh, well, I have a solution for that, I'll just put you on the pill, I just thought, wow, this is amazing. I have a solution. It sounds pretty easy. I'll totally go with that. But I was never presented with any other options. So how will we ever be able to make fully informed decisions about our healthcare if we don't get other options and we're just presented with this one solution? So yes, I think that it's multifaceted, this problem.
I mean, that's a great point. When we talk about birth control and we talk about the pill, I think it's, to me, do you guys find that in our culture and any culture that has education, when we took health sciences, do you guys remember that in school? Back in the old days when I took health sciences, did they ever teach us about our hormone levels? Did they ever teach us about what we could do to actually be healthier? They didn't really necessarily tell you that in certain cycles. I would love to touch on that in this conversation about like certain cycles and certain aspects of a cycle in relation to health of your age to a person in a particular time. But when we talk about birth control, like your doctor said, here's the birth control pill, take it, and it's going to fix it. When we look at that, what do you think? Why is it that these methods of just giving you the pill are showing that they don't necessarily work in our culture? For some people, it may work a bit, but on the majority, I don't see that. But what do you see? Why it's not working?
Oh my goodness. Where do I begin?
That's a very vague question. So guys,
I have an answer. I was just processing in my head because you were talking about health sciences class, and I went to a Catholic high school and I took Christian family life education. So I didn't even get health sciences, just so you guys know. There's not a whole lot of learning.
This is where the podcast, everybody out there is going to relate. I don't know if Courtney did, but I did too. I went to Christian school, and anything that was talking about reproduction, sex, sexual health was kind of like, no, you're not going to be talking about that. In fact, I was like, well, if you kind of focused on that and worked about it, they think that it's going to push people towards that avenue. I was like, actually, it would, I had a joke with a lot of my doctor friends, and this is not a joke, probably. I hate to say it that way. But in that aspect, knowledge is power. And if you know more, you probably would abstain from things that probably weren't the healthiest for you. If you learned about how certain individuals, you could tell for yourself if you're not healthy and the other person's not healthy, probably keep you from some things. But anyway, let's go back to the Catholic high school. Let's hear what you have to say.
Oh, no. I have nothing to say from that time because I learned nothing. I learned it all afterwards. But, I think what you said about, birth control and it not really fixing the issues. I think, first of all, like I said before, right, we don't really even have an understanding of what's going on. And then we're going to the doctor and they're not really telling us what's going on either. Mm-hmm. And I think there's obviously such a lack of knowledge of the fact that there is a hypothalamus and a pituitary, and then there's these multiple axes in the body, right? We've got the HPA, the adrenal axis, and we've got the HPO or the ovarian axis and the thyroid axis, and they're all connected. The adrenals and thyroids take the brunt of what's going on in our lives, and they're really the ones that start acting up first. But I think because we have, we've so normalized the things that cause hormones to go awry in our society now that we don't even realize that there's a problem, right? There's this evolutionary mismatch. And so this normalization of all the things that cause our hormones to go haywire, right? Like all of the caffeine that we drink, and we start our day off that way, and we start our day looking at our phones, and we end our days looking at our phones. And a lot of us are under eating and over exercising, and or we're not exercising at all, skipping breakfast, all of these things that we have, like I said, have just become so ubiquitous. This puts us in this situation where we don't even realize that these imbalances are just building over time from the time that we're really young now, because we don't even know that we're doing something wrong. And so then by the time our ovaries start rebelling against us, we're so like far gone and we don't even realize that. So I think that when it comes to the pill side of things, or, the different forms of hormonal birth control, the pill is still the most popular one. First of all, I think it depends on the birth control method. So there's multiple methods, and they work somewhat differently, but generally speaking, hormonal birth control, the mechanism of action is that, it's two things. It prevents ovulation and or prevents fertilization. And then, there's more, but I'll get to that by just saying that we're just stopping that communication, right, between the brain and the ovaries. And when we're stopping ovulation, we're stopping all the hormone fluctuations that come with it, and ultimately the symptoms that we're experiencing. And so we've got this synthetic estrogen, the synthetic progesterone known as progestin. And these two, hormones, they're basically just telling the brain, like, you don't need to do your job anymore type of thing. So we're sort of just putting an end to the production of our endogenous hormones. And if they don't get made, then your ovaries aren't getting an egg ready for ovulation. And so we end up in a situation where, okay, so we've just turned off the whole process. So we've turned off the ovaries' response to all of this external stimuli that I was talking about. And so it's like akin to, close it, your house is on fire and you just walk out the front door and you close it and you walk away instead of addressing the fire. So I think that is ultimately one of the issues. And then the second thing is, of course, the synthetic hormones that are found in the pill and these other forms of birth control, they come with their own set of side effects, in addition to the fact that you're no longer ovulating. So it's definitely multifaceted. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I'm curious for people that are, because I still know a lot of women that are still on the pill and they're like, I haven't had any issues. In fact, it solved a lot of my problems. Like, I am very regular now. I don't have cramps. Like, I feel really good on it. What are they compromising on in that separation of the communication between the brain and the ovaries? Because, I've heard a lot of, there's a lot more to ovulation other than just like potentially getting pregnant and having a child. So what's the benefit of actually ovulating when we're talking about women's health?
Yeah, I find this so interesting because, again, it comes back to this lack of education in our society about how our bodies work, health sciences class. And the fact that we say this, right? We're told that your period is going to be regular. I was convinced I was having a period on the pill. And we're told that we're not going to have painful periods anymore or heavy periods or whatever, insert period related problem, right? We joke it's the pill for all ills. And so basically, we're told this and we don't realize, right? So all of these women are unknowingly saying to you that their period is lighter or it's regulated or whatever, all the while not even realizing that they're just experiencing a complete shutdown of their menstrual cycle and their reproductive function. And so they're sort of put into this state. It's almost like a menopausal state. I can certainly say when I came off the pill, it took me years to get my hormones back on track, even to levels that seemed acceptable. And so with ovulation, which, is, I consider a vital bodily function. And really anyone of childbearing age, I consider them needing to experience that regularly, regardless of whether they want to get pregnant or not. And so there's this belief that they don't need to do this, that we don't need to have ovulation and it's fine to just go for decades. Yet we're really seeing, at least in my work, the consequences of that. And so when ovulation happens on a consistent basis, it drives sufficient levels of testosterone, estradiol, progesterone. And then also, of course, it interacts with thyroid hormones and our HPA axis. So there's this whole interconnected web inside of our bodies that we're not taking into consideration. So when these, yes, these two hormones are responsible for the menstrual cycle and reproduction, but actually, as you said, there's so much more. I mean, there's brain function and cognitive health. They're like actually our brain's friends, and we don't even realize that. And sleep regulation, bone density, heart health, so much like breast health, uterine health, like our vaginal health, vaginal microbiome. Estrogen supports vaginal microbiome diversity as well as our gut microbiome, our skin health, our hair health. I mean, melasma, all kinds of issues that show up, at least did for me on the pill, and I've heard this countless times before, are related back to the sex hormones and their levels. So, that's obviously just a snapshot of all the ways, but these are so critical, and yet we're really just not aware of it. And, and again, I know there's not a lot of research, unfortunately, but I see it anecdotally, and I have for so many years. I'm sure you guys have too. It's just like, it's hugely problematic because it's almost like a constellation of symptoms that seem unrelated. And women are like, what do I do? I don't know where to start, type of thing.
Yeah.
I think it definitely, like when you feed the body so much of a certain hormone and you disconnect the brain to the body, I think it's not really discussed, and it's not discussed at all, I don't think, in normal health talk about how you are talking about the implications between organ systems. And just the amount of estrogens that are put into the body, I don't think many people out there would realize that, like, for instance, your liver and your gallbladder have quite a bit to do to help you detoxify excess hormones. And so you're dumping all this excess hormone into the body, and then you're putting a ton of load onto the liver and the gallbladder. And they're like, yo, I don't have the genes to handle this. And so you read, when somebody has melasma, somebody has excess hair growth, somebody does have hair falling out, and they'll think, wait, the liver and the gallbladder can be affected by me on the pill. And I'm like, yes, it can be. And I think that's really I mean, it's a sad thing that you can put a pill out there and you think, well, no other things are discussed: liver health, gallbladder health. And then you have people that have non-alcoholic fatty liver syndrome or metabolic syndrome, and they gain weight and they can't drop it. And you think, can it be interrelated? And I'm like, yes. And sadly, it's never discussed. So I think that is a very good point for anybody listening, that the interconnection of organs, it's not just your ovaries and it's not just your uterus. It literally is like your brain, your liver, your colon. I mean, constipation, for crying out loud. I cannot tell you how many times people have constipation. And please, guys, if you're taking the pill out there, ladies, I'm not being harsh. I'm just saying that it is one of the biggest implications, because they can't move their bile out of their system because their liver and gallbladder are so screwed up from the pill. Anyway, on that rant, I'm saying if somebody does have that much, influx of hormone, I've seen it where a patient would come in and say, hey, I want to get pregnant now after 20 years of taking the pill. What do you recommend? Like, okay, so they have all this influx of hormone. They want to clean it out. And they're saying like, hey, Nicole, what do I do to clean all of this extra things out to support my body after I get off of it? What are some of the tactics you employ for people who ask you that?
Yeah, I, just want to speak really quickly to what you said about the liver gallbladder thing, because I can't tell you, when I got into this work, it never occurred to me how many women I would meet who've had their gallbladders removed. In their 20s and 30s, and across the board, they'd been on some form of hormonal birth control. And I think, again, right, it's just this exactly what you're talking about. The gallbladder and the liver, they work hand in hand, and these synthetic hormones really place a really big burden on them. I mean, they affect the gallbladder motility, they affect bile flow, contribute to the gallstones, all of these issues. And like you said, then you're so constipated. It was the story of my life. I swear, I spent 5 years on the pill, and constipation was basically the thing. And so I had all these problems. So it all makes sense, of course, but it's funny when you start to connect the dots. And I think that that's the great thing, is that women are really finally starting to see the connection between all of these different body symptoms. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think it's huge. And it's obviously a really big part of what we do to start to help someone turn things around. And so the first thing is, and I think this is probably across the board, is if you're experiencing side effects, right, associated with insert birth control method, right? You've got IUDs, you've got the pill, you've got other ones that are similar to the pill, like the patch and the vaginal ring, and then we have like the birth control shot and whatnot. And so they're all various synthetic hormones that are associated with these types of birth control. And while generally speaking, they all have the same kinds of side effects, they can show up a little bit differently depending on the type of synthetic progestin, for instance, that's used. And so I think that if you're experiencing side effects, that's a sign that something is awry. And I think that that's the first thing, right, is to like really find it within yourself, to go and see your doctor and have a conversation and really get educated about what could be happening here. Because I think that's the first step that a lot of us don't take, because we are just so accustomed to the side effects and feeling like crap. And so I always really encourage clients and anyone really to talk to your doctor, figure out, is this the right birth control for me? I think it's a big decision, but I also think, well, your health and your long-term health are really worth it. So that's really the first step. And then I think the second step really is to prioritize these foundational components, right? And I talk about this extensively in my book, and, I'm talking about it in my membership and whatnot, but basically it's that you've got to figure out, first of all, if you're on a form of birth control that potentially allows you to ovulate, like a copper IUD, for instance, figure out whether you're ovulating. That's the first step, because that could be a big part of the symptoms you're experiencing. So that's, to me, that's a big thing for someone who is either recently off the birth control pill or off of a hormonal form of birth control, or they're on a form of birth control that still allows ovulation, like some progestin only ones do as well. So anyways, that's again, the beginning stages of becoming period literate. And then the next thing is what are you eating and how are you eating? I think what you're eating and how you're eating are almost equally important. And so, I really work with everyone to figure out, like, what does your plate look like? When are you eating? Are you having coffee before you eat? Are you eating 3 meals a day? Are you having snacks? Are you eating enough protein? Is your blood sugar balanced? So we really start to look at all of those aspects of someone's diet. And from there, I go into, like I said before, blood sugar. To me, that's a really big one. When I work with all of these women with major period issue, like period pain related issues or pelvic pain or ovulatory pain, one of the first steps is, okay, can we get a CGM? Can we track your blood sugar? Let's see what's going on there. And is that just a trigger for inflammation in the body? And then we look at stress and whatnot as well. Like, I think stress is one of the biggest things, and sort of like adrenal support hacks. And what can we do with your sleep? How do we address the issues that are happening here? Because as I was saying earlier, right, so many of us just don't even realize it's actually our adrenals and our thyroids that are so burnt out that are then trickling down, causing these ovarian issues. I talked about this in my book, this hormonal hierarchy, and the idea that, there definitely is a hierarchy, and the adrenal and the blood sugar hormones, insulin, are like the queen bees, and they have an impact on everything down below. And so we have to, I feel like, start at the top, because starting it down at the bottom, yes, it can help relieve symptoms for sure, but I'm a big fan of starting at the top. And so basic things like, when do you turn your phone off and your computer, and what's going on with the light at night in your house? Are you wearing blue blocking glasses? And are you, like relaxing before bed? Are you taking magnesium before you go to sleep? Like some of these like basic things, again, I feel like the basics are so often overlooked for like the next shiny object. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. So yeah, I think that the basics or the foundational pieces aren't so fun and exciting. And but I do really like to start there. And I could go on, but I'll stop for now.
I know, Courtney, I just want to ask a real quick question on that mode. When you think when you're talking about starting at the top, for everybody listening, like when we start with like the thyroid and its connection to adrenals, and we talk about burnout. Maybe something we can talk about this a little bit later. Does it occur so people know that they should, let's say for their thyroid, and they go into burnout and they have a program in their body, in their life, because they're always on the go. You're always on your phone. You're always trying to get to the next appointment. Then they would have to factor in, like, maybe they had some form of infection that got into the thyroid, or did their constant stress levels allow weakness within the thyroid that could allow like an infection to be attracted to the tissue because it's so weak, like Epstein-Barr virus, having Hashimoto's, having that autoimmune effect, or constant strep infections that are in the throat. Because I see that quite a bit with individuals that have ovary issues. And so in my weird way of checking people, I'll check with, like, they call the triple warmer and the pericardium meridians in Chinese medicine. So what we do is we'll check the ovary area, and then a lot of times with the system, it leads me all the way back up to the triple warmer points, which are your thyroid. So is that a big effect too? Because I always think that thyroid has a lot to do with your emotions too. I think the emotions of not being able to speak your voice, not being able to express the frustration in your life, and it combines in this area, like in your throat, because that's the natural action of your throat. It's like to tell somebody something, like, I can't say this enough. And so it combines, it gets tight, and then you get infections. Man, that was a big prologue. But basically what I'm asking, Nicole, is that ever an effect on the person, like with the top of the chain, infections in the thyroid and your emotions? Does that have a big effect on your ovulation and working with, your estrogen and testosterone?
Yeah, I feel like I call these the unseen stressors. I feel like they're the physical stressors, the mental, emotional stressors. And the physical ones are these hidden infections or these undiagnosed things like you said, Epstein-Barr and various others, Lyme disease and whatnot, parasites, mold toxicity. I feel like that is level 2 of healing in a way, because oftentimes when someone comes to me, they're not doing a whole lot. And so they really need to establish just that foundation, see how they feel, and then go from there. Because oftentimes, and I'm curious what your thoughts are too on this, is that someone comes to me and they've done, I don't know, $2,000 worth of testing, and they still feel clueless. They feel like the protocols were all too hard and they just don't know where to start. And they're even more burnt out than they were before. And so oftentimes, I like to get back to basics and keep it simple. But I completely agree with you that there are definitely cases of this. Like when you think about the thyroid and the fact that, first of all, it determines your basal body temperature, right? It's your thermostat, and you need to have your body needs to be at a certain temperature in order to carry a pregnancy, in order for a fertilized egg to attach to the uterine lining and to grow. So I feel like if your thyroid isn't operating at peak, performance, then you're going to run into problems. Like your ovaries need to produce enough progesterone so that your thyroid can produce enough thyroid hormone, and then the cycle goes around. You need thyroid hormone for your ovaries to work. There are receptors on the ovaries. So 100%. And I think, again, right, that the thyroid is so overlooked in modern medicine. It's women will go to their doctor. I've seen a lot where you're on the pill, you develop depressed feelings, anxiety, or, you start to feel like you actually have depression, and you go to the doctor and then they put you on an antidepressant, but it's likely because the pill is downregulating your thyroid function. So, wow. Right. I've seen this a million times. And oftentimes women will say to me, I thought it was weird. I'd never really had any of these feelings before, but then a year into taking the pill, this is what happened. And then now I'm on an antidepressant as well. Oh, and actually then a doctor put me on thyroid medication because they tested my thyroid and they noticed that it wasn't working well. So I'm like, yeah, this, it all goes hand in hand, right? It makes so much sense.
That's good. Go ahead, Corey. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I cut you off.
It is like it's a total trickle down effect. But what I hear you saying too is that it's a lot of peripheral things. So it's like we see the byproduct or the end product, which is, hey, we've got painful periods or irregular periods. What's crazy to me is that like we're so trigger happy with young women. And when I say I'm talking about like conventional med docs. So that's definitely not us. But like when we're talking about like, I have an almost 12-year-old daughter. And so, there's a lot of hormones, there's a lot of things going on with her friends, all this stuff. And it's like the rapid pace of the conversation going from, hey, this child is now, maturing, going through puberty. And it's like, oh, we already see a problem. We're just going to, advise that they get on the pill. And I'm like, okay, well, this child's like 12, 13 years old. Like their body hasn't even established a rhythm yet, really. Like it's like right out of the gates, we're like, oh, this doesn't look right, which, there's so many things that are attached to the lifestyle that are contributing to that. But then they're on it for like 10, 15 years. And then they come off, or, even longer. And then their body's super dysregulated. Now they've got nutrient deficiencies because we know the pill can deplete certain nutrients. So for some of these conditions that women feel like my only option that I'm given to help, say like they have endo or PCOS, like, we've never really addressed blood sugar. We've never really addressed, all these things that probably could have helped support their hormones. Like, I'm sure you have a million stories for this, but for somebody that feels like their only option is a form of birth control, hormonal birth control, to help control their symptoms, what have you seen work, or a combination of therapies or herbs or whatever it is that you're like, this stuff actually works. This will actually heal your hormones as opposed to just overriding the biological processes with something synthetic.
100%. I mean, everything that I was just talking about, it takes work, right? And I think that that's another fundamental flaw of our modern society is that we've been sold the lie that we can all somehow we can function in this society, but not very well. And as I was saying earlier, I was talking about this evolutionary mismatch, this idea that we are our biology just doesn't do well in the modern world and this world that we've created. And so it requires, and again, I'll talk about teens in a second, because I think that that's a bit of a different story. I mean, for us adults, it requires taking a really hard look at what your life is like right now, if you have the means to do that. I recognize a lot of us actually don't, but really making decisions. I mean, for me, I worked in film production in my 20s. That was like my big dream. So I left that to come do this. And I really struggled. I mean, working 16-hour days, and you were doing overnight shoots, and it was nuts. Craft services, a lot of sugar, all the things. And the issues that I'd had as a teenager, I'd seen an acupuncturist in my early 20s, and I managed to resolve a lot of them, came off the pill. But then they all came raging back in my mid to late 20s as I got more and more into this work. And so we have to start to correlate, right? The lifestyle and the symptoms, because our bodies, they don't speak English or any language. They speak their own language, and it's the language of symptoms. And so you have to be able to look and connect the dots. And so then, fast forward, I moved to New York. I was living in the city, and it was crazy. And then right before the pandemic, we left, and then I ended up living now in the country. And I cannot believe, I didn't want to believe it at first because I love New York, but leaving that insane environment was absolutely game changing for my adrenal health, my body, everything, how I function completely. And so I think that, again, you don't necessarily have to leave where you live, guys. I'm just saying. You don't have to do that, but sometimes you do. And it was so shocking to me, because I thought, oh yeah, I've got like all the healthcare stuff dialed in. I'm good, but obviously that environment was just way too stressful for my body, and I couldn't function optimally in it. And now on the other side, you can see that. So hindsight is amazing. With all of that said, though, I think with teenagers in particular, it's so challenging, right? Because it's this very rocky, tumultuous time. I mean, when you think about it, this body is going from never having had a menstrual cycle to having a period. And what is involved in that process between the brain and the ovaries and the adrenals and thyroid is kind of incredible. And so of course it's going to be rocky. And instead of acknowledging that and sort of working within that framework, we're just like, let's just shut this thing down. And like you said, right, both of you said, we're seeing so many girls and women who have put on the pill. I had someone tell me she was put on the pill at 8 years old because she was getting migraines. Oh yeah. Didn't even have a period. Yes. So she was getting migraines. And so these are the solutions that we're throwing at girls and women. And to me, that's almost unconscionable, because their bodies are, I don't even know what happened. She was barely able to even get her hormones online. And so we're seeing this younger and younger. And what are the long-term consequences of that? So I think, as a society, as parents, if you have a teenager, it requires you to ask questions and potentially make hard decisions about making changes. In fact, I had someone who was in my program a couple of years ago, and she was just talking to us in our Facebook group about her daughter, who's also your daughter's age, Courtney, maybe 13, but she was having like massively painful periods, very disruptive of her life. And her mom has endo, and she's worked tirelessly to address that. And her daughter eats really well. She's doing really well, but she finally, ran a GI map on her and did a few other tests and discovered that, she had a parasite and she had like general dysbiosis. And when she was able to clean that up, things changed dramatically. So in many cases, the solution is actually quite simple, but, we either don't know or it's just challenging with a teenager. And so I think that is where education of your child comes in, right? And saying like, well, this is why this is happening. And these are the things that we can start to look at to maybe affect change in your symptoms. But again, I know teenagers are challenging.
I mean, like with teenagers too, it's like, I would suspect like if you have a young one that's been put on birth control at 8 years old, and now we see in our culture that you place a lot of estrogen and progestin like into a person, and the long-term effects is we don't know the actual bioindividuality of each kid. one kid could have the gene receptors to actually break down estrogens in a healthy way. So they may not have as bad as effect of somebody else who can't break down the estrogen. So now we're seeing childhood obesity. We're seeing weight gain more than I've ever seen before with my patient load. And you think, well, how much of that is because estrogen deposits have been placed in the body in certain areas? And then, right, like I love it that you describe on your feed about how estrogens deposit in certain areas of the body. And now, then there's a self-image issue with these teenagers that go, oh, I got to meet up and something's wrong with me because I can't lose this weight. And the education part of it's so saddening to me. It's because, oh, we can throw a birth control pill at a migraine. And it just goes beyond my comprehension why that occurs. So that's why I'm so thankful for your education, because, for the parent out there that has a daughter that's gaining weight or has this issue, no way trying to make them feel bad about anything. It's like they only did what they knew what they're supposed to do. Yeah. With that, because teenagers, you say it's hard to work with them. I know sometimes with the patients, like when they bring their teenagers in, I'm like, no knock on the teenagers listening if there's any of them out there listening. But I'm like,
no knock.
I'm like, how much do they really want to give up dairy? Or how much? And do you ever find it's like, okay, they'll give up dairy but I can't watch them every day and I can't go with them to school. What are the natural things that you would tell them? Because I love how you say it's simple. I always tell people slow and steady wins the race. You got to stay simple. You can't go crazy. What are your natural things you say that you do in place of birth control for a teenager? Like, because I would, I don't know if I ever have kids, but if I ever do, I'm going to listen to this.
I'm actually very curious about this question because I'm done. I'm tapped out. So, and fertility awareness method was in place and we have a 1-year-old. So I'm just saying, maybe I'm doing it all wrong, but give us the scoop.
You guys, this is the challenge. I get asked this question all the time, and I don't really have the most amazing answer because first of all, I think it's so individualized. And also someone will say to me, well, what's the safest, most effective birth control? I'm like, well, it's so dependent on your circumstances. And also every form of birth control has a failure rate. It might be small, but unless you're completely abstaining, and I don't want to sound like, someone from 1955, but
oh, you are, Nicole. You're sounding just like that kind of skinny. That's a joke.
Oh my gosh. But I really, unless you're abstaining completely, then it's not 100%. And so I think that obviously we have to consider that. Courtney, you obviously know this very well, based on your experiences. But, I think there's definitely a pros and cons, right? And I think knowing your teenager is so crucial because when I think about, for instance, the effects of the birth control pill on mood, and, there was a big study done in Denmark. It looked at I think maybe 1 million women, teenagers, women, and the teenagers on these hormonal contraceptives were, I think, 50% more likely to be diagnosed with depression within 6 months of starting the contraceptive, compared to non-hormonal contraceptives, that were not on hormonal contraceptives. So I feel like, first of all, it's knowledge and understanding your body, and I think that as parents, things have really shifted in that we're having a lot more conversations about our bodies and menstrual cycles and sex and things like that. Whereas I don't know, did you guys have conversations with your parents about this stuff? I didn't.
No, no.
Yeah. It's like, no.
No.
I said no 5 times.
I said no about 15 times, just like, no.
No. Exactly. So I feel like in just a generation, things have really shifted. And what I think is also amazing to see, especially on TikTok, is how many young girls are tracking their cycles and really understand what's going on. That just is unheard of. That was not a thing just 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So I think things have really changed dramatically. There's a lot more openness around these topics. And, and there are devices now. So there's things that I feel teenagers can relate more to because technologically speaking, they're way ahead of all of us. And so I'm thinking about, there's a device known as the Tina, and they're made by the company that makes the Daisy. And so that's another fertility monitor. But the Tina is specifically for tweens and teens. And what I like is that you take your temperature and then it will show you when you've ovulated. So it's not meant to be used as birth control. It's meant to be a cycle tracker, but it will actually tell you when you're ovulating or when you have ovulated so that you really have an understanding of your cycle versus just tracking your cycle on an app where, apps 80% of the time cannot predict ovulation because they're doing it retrospectively. So it's just not, it doesn't make sense. When you're tracking your fertility signs or signs from your body, then obviously that's going to be much more accurate. So, and they have an app too that is so educational. It's got a ton of great content. So that's one thing that I've recommended to a lot of parents. And then, like I said, having these open conversations and, you can, I think that the other thing is too, right, is that some of us can go on the pill and be okay. I've certainly seen that. I'm not denying it by any means. And so I think that that's important as well. And there's also IUDs. And again, I think that there are side effects with everything and there are obviously failure rates, but the longer acting ones like the IUDs tend to, be really good too for a teenager if your kid and that them tracking their cycle or using the fertility awareness method isn't going to work. So again, I think there's definitely a risk assessment that has to happen and lots of conversation. If, you can have open dialogue, I think it's so useful. And also like from a young age, really just being so cool and calm about periods and sex and whatever. And it's so difficult, I think, as adults because we bring all of our own childhood trauma and all of our baggage around these topics to conversations. But what I've really loved recently is having conversations with friends of mine who, like they're changing a tampon in the bathroom and their 2-year-old comes in and they're like, "What are you doing, Mom?" And she explains it and they're like, "Okay, cool." And they move on because they don't have any attachment to this stuff.
Yeah.
Like one of my friend's daughters, she would call her period the volcano, which I find hilarious. So, so I just feel like kids are not
The
attached
volcano.
to this. They don't have weirdness around this. And so if you talk about it from the get-go, I feel like you can have these great conversations with them as they get older and then really try and make a decision for them. Because it is so individualized, as I said, it's a difficult one for sure, but I think it's doable.
Yeah. I think okay, so we have 3 girls, so this is and Marley, the baby, so she's only 1, but the other 2 are getting a little bit older, and my middle child, she's at the gym all day with these gymnasts, and a lot of them are older too. So I do think that having conversation about this early and even just explaining that different weeks of your cycle, different weeks of the month look different. I'm trying to train the girls to understand that their body needs something different from them every single week. So yeah, you may be able to get out there and just crush it and play hard in soccer and do stuff. But if you feel tired in your luteal phase, that's okay too. And maybe you just need to cool your jets. Maybe if you need to skip a practice, listen to your body, stop allowing the system to tell you what you need to be showing up as every single day, because the more you could own it. And I had a lot of hormone problems, between baby 2 and 3. And so, which is why number 3 was such a surprise, because I basically didn't have a cycle for 8 straight years. And so it was really, you're not tracking anything when there's nothing to track. So, but she showed up, and ever since then, I've just been oh my gosh, this is insane. My body's it's back to doing what it's normally supposed to do. And I think that there's a different level of appreciation for your body, because it is a vital sign. So like you said earlier, I mean, your cycle being regular and pain-free, that's a really good indicator that your body, all of the things north of that, like your thyroid and adrenal health, that's all got to be sitting pretty good, because when that stuff's a firestorm, I can tell you for sure your reproductive system is going to be a big crap show. Like, it's not going to be good. So that's where it's like, I'm always like, okay, protect whatever you need to do. Like, make sure that the fertility system of your body looks really good and feels really good, because if it doesn't, then likely your adrenals are taxed. Like, you're just, the stressors on your life are starting to weigh on your body, and you've got to be able to address them. Otherwise, it's a freaking dumpster fire from there on out.
Dumpster fire. I love it.
And then you get older, and then it's a bigger dumpster fire, as I'm learning in my 40s. It's crazy. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is that we get this message. I feel like this is one of our bigger problems too, is that we have so many problems. But anyway, we get this message from this young age, right? That puberty is a nightmare, and you're going to have these terrible teenage periods, and teenagers are just a nightmare. Like we hear this all the time. Like, if I hear one more time about how teenage girls are just, a nightmare, it drives me crazy, because I'm like, why are we putting this on our children like this? This doesn't make any sense. Why aren't we meeting them where they're at? Like, I just know, being in my 40s and what my hormones are doing. I remember what they were doing in puberty, and and we joke, right, that for your 40s is your second puberty, and so far it's really shaping up to be that way. It's crazy, and I take really good care of myself, so there is that too. But my point is that we hear that messaging over and over again, and then we hear that then you have to go on the pill because you have to solve all these problems. This is the only way you can fix all of these issues that you have. And then pregnancy and getting pregnant is also challenging, and pregnancy is challenging, and postpartum is a nightmare. And then we go on, and then perimenopause and menopause, and then you die. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how can women just be getting the message that every decade of their life is basically going to suck because of their hormones? And so I think we really have to change that messaging.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that never experiencing what you ladies have to go through. I have seen in the office, though, and for anybody out there, I've worked with patients that have hormone issues, and you say that there is that stigma, especially like, they're giving the pill or changing hormones at a younger age. And so it's a tough thing to think like, what am I going to expect in my 20s and in my 30s? And I think it's a beautiful thing about learning your bioindividuality, like your cycles, how you could at your particular age, like you're saying, how individuals on TikTok or Instagram start to learn themselves really well. And I think it's really encouraging that they can say, okay, well, definitely my estrogen levels could give me some mood issues. I could have more bleeding at this time. I could have this cessation of a period because of this condition or this phase in my life, because there's so much fear involved nowadays. It's like, oh heavens, like, if I miss a period, for 2 months, something's definitely got to be wrong. And more than often now, I've even seen in the last 7 years, is like for individuals who've not had a period for a long time, and they're getting to age where they want to have a second or third baby. Like they had one early, they want to have a second or third later. And they literally, like Courtney said, like, I got used to not having a period. And more investigation, doing some hormonal testing. And then you go, well, there could be some kidney weakness and thyroid and adrenal health issues. And then when you work on those and start cleaning up all the things that the thyroid was heavy with, I had patients that come in like, Dr. Molly, I've thrown clots. I don't know how many clots I just released in the last 2 days, like so much that I don't even know where it came from in my body. And, the detoxification system of having a period is never really looked at, in my opinion. And so what I'm saying is, like, with this, young education for young, ladies and such, I want to say, I tell some of my patients, it's like, it's not just about having babies, and it's really about you getting rid of old toxic stuff. And I think the education platform, I wish they had even more education in high school and even in middle school. And maybe I may get, beat up about that comment, but there's a point where I'd rather people learn a real basic health information at younger ages, in the sense like, what can we look at in a very straight, simple format? Because I don't know about you in your school, my school, it was like shunned, like, no, we don't talk about that. That stuff happens naturally. Everything's okay, And so nowadays I'm thinking this kind of stuff needs to come to the forefront, especially for women's health. So, I mean, I'm thankful for the information that you're providing though with this. And I think also, as I keep on jabbering, there's a point to this. When we're talking about the natural things that help with birth control, and we're talking about in education platforms, where do you see this health realm going? Like in this particular avenue, in our culture, in our society, in the government, in our education system, do you see any changes? Like they're going to start changing the way they approach this education?
I don't. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I think that there are. I know I'm so fatalistic, but I feel like there certainly are changes that are happening. But I think sex education is only required in 13 states in high school, possibly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's only mandated in a small handful of states. It's shocking. And I could be wrong, but it is a really low number. And it's just so shocking to me when I heard it. And so I think, again, right, this is a fundamental problem. And it does make you wonder, well, who's behind this? Like, why are we not having these conversations? Why is this education being withheld when, as you said, right, it's just really basic foundational information about how bodies work. I will say, I mean, Courtney, I don't know, what your 12-year-old is learning in school, but I have a friend who has twins and they're also 12. And she showed me some of the paperwork from their health education class, and I just about fell over. I mean, the diagrams look like they're from the 80s, and it's it's half of it is misinformation. I was stunned. So I don't know. I think because of social media, it's amazing. I mean, what I see out there. I remember I was talking to Holly, a friend of mine who runs the social media for the Tina app, like I was talking about before. And she's like, I got 1 million views on one of my TikToks. And I'm so happy about it. And she gets a bazillion questions from teenagers about all kinds of cycle things because they don't have anyone to turn to. They're not getting any information at school. I believe the stats show that the majority of teens get their information, or at least used to, from their friends. And now it's social media. And so I think that through these indirect channels, things are really shifting, but it's not through the direct channels that I'd really like to see it come from higher up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm also curious, talking about kind of the change in the landscape of, the pill and hormones and periods and all this stuff. It did just change a little bit in that now there's an over-the-counter option for birth control, which to me, I'm like, what goes back to like the foundations, right? And I mean, I won't get on my soapbox here, guys. I'll do that another time. But a lot of it is that, hey, we want for young people to have access to something that was prior, like a prescription, because it solves an immediate problem. Got all these teens, they're all worried about getting pregnant. They're all worried about, their period and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm just going to slap a Band-Aid on it. I'm just going to get the pill. They're not going to have the conversations. They're not going to have the understanding. There's zero respect and regard for your body at that point. Let's be honest. None of us at the age of 15 really cared what our body, because your body's young. It's resilient. I mean, it can bounce back, so easily. It's not until you hit 35 or 40 or beyond. And all of a sudden it's like one misstep, you're paying the repercussions for days. So, at a young age. And it's also like you said, it's this stigma of like, I'm ashamed. Like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, I am trying to bust through that just in the home. So like, if you're a parent, I just think like the best way is just to model it, like live your life. Like, I want my girls to know that like, hey, that is like your superpower. You do not need to be ashamed of it. Like, that is a sign that your body is healthy. And like, we're going to adapt our lifestyle to your body so that your body can thrive. But yeah, I mean, this whole, like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what do you think that the ramifications long-term are going to look like now that we have this as an option over the counter?
It's a great question.
I know, it's so interesting. I have such mixed feelings about it because I think obviously, and regardless of where everyone stands on, in the perspective around Roe v. Wade and access to abortion in the U.S., it felt a little like, let's just do this now that those rights have been, have shifted for so many people across the country. And so I thought the timing was interesting, although I know they've been working on it for a long time. I've been hearing about it for a long time. It's a progestin only birth control. So it's kind of like a mini pill is often what it's referred to. And so generally speaking, it's safe, but there are multiple different progestins that exist. So there are different side effects that come with it. But, some of the biggest side effects are that, the mental and emotional ones, I think are some of the biggest, right? It's like the depression or depressed feelings, the anxiety, and then like irregular bleeding, things like that. So while there aren't, as many side effects, I would think, as an estrogen progestin birth control option, there certainly are side effects. And I think we have to really consider those. And so the other big concern I have too is that some of us go to the doctor's office. We don't read that insert that comes with a pill or any of our medications, do we? We don't look at the side effects. We don't look at really how to use it effectively. I'm assuming that if you buy these, maybe you could chat with a pharmacist on how to do this, but I doubt if anyone who's buying these pills, it's likely going to be teenagers who don't want to talk to anybody about this. They just want birth control and they don't feel like they can talk to anyone about it. So are they reading the instructions? You have to take a progestin only pill at the same time every day for maximum effectiveness. Is that happening? So, there are lots. I feel like it's so multifaceted and there are so many concerns associated with this. And at the same time, I feel like, okay, so someone could get access to birth control that they might not have had before. And that might be a game changer for them in their lives. So it's conflicting.
Oh, I think that this is a great question to even for people out there to think about. I mean, after this podcast, to sort of, not to be overwhelming to anybody out there. That's a great question, Courtney. It's like, what are our long term? And so you don't want to make it too complicated because people could say like, well, if you have an over the counter, it doesn't take into consideration if that person genetically can break this down, or they had a diet high full of sugar, or they live into a toxic, stressful environment. You are trying to solve an immediate issue. And you could see that somehow it may have some benefit to some individuals with their hormone levels. It is a very tough quandary to look into in this day and age, because in the long run, you never know, like you say, after 40 or 50 years of age, your methylation cycles, your stem cells kind of wear out. They don't teach people that when they're young, like, your stem cells are not going to be around all your life. And they're like,
yeah, and you don't care.
I mean, I could gain weight after 35. And you're like, oh, I mean, but that's the thing that it's great about education, about learning. That's what we want to be upbeat and positive about it too. But I just think that when you keep it simple, I'm like, just be careful of all the sugars, all the dairy, drink plenty of water, get a lot of minerals in your diet, take some basic vitamins and minerals. But now we see, like, we have parents having to take their kids to soccer practice and take them here and here and here. And then all the kids are like running around and they're completely tired, and it's like this little revolving cycle, 22, catch 22. But I think everybody out there that's listening, it's like, take one step at a time, just to like listen to the information Nicole gives and try to take those first easy steps. So, man, we could keep going on with this. I love this information though, but they're going to ask like, how do I take steps? Like, what book, what's your book? Where's your website? What Instagram feed? Where could they find more information about you and about this subject?
Yeah, and to come back to what you said too, I agree, right? We're also overwhelmed, just start with the basics. Like I said, I listed off, a bunch of like those basics, and I walk everyone through that in the protocol in my book, Fix Your Period. I have a membership that is on the verge of launching, and I have protocols for basically everything. You've come off the hormonal IUD, I got something for you there. You have ovarian cysts, I got something for you there too. Whatever it is, because I really want everyone to understand that this comes back to as you were saying, right? Like the nutrient deficiencies and what's happening with your liver and your gallbladder and your gut. And again, we would never equate, just a regular person would never equate their gut health with what's going on with their menstrual cycle. Because why would you do that? It's all separate. So, that's really what I want to come back to. And I'd say, like, if you work on anything, try and work on getting good quality sleep and getting sunlight in your eyes in the morning, getting maybe some sunset light in your eyes in the late afternoon, and just work on, taking care of your blood sugar. So making sure you reduce the amount of carbs you're having. I think that the blood sugar thing is like an epidemic, right? It has been the thing that has caused, at least in my experience over the last decade, so many issues. So yeah, I would say that. But the protocol in my book, I explain so much in there, like what's normal, what's not for a period, so that you can really know, okay, well, where am I on this spectrum? And then also, my Instagram, my blogs, there's a ton of information that you can find on like what your next steps are, depending on where you're at. Like, are you on birth control? Are you off of it? Are you experiencing symptoms? Because again, I think that's the other thing too, right? We didn't even touch on this, but I'll say real quick, like if you come off of hormonal birth control, you haven't been ovulating maybe for like 20 years in some cases. You're 35. You've been on it since you were 15. And your body is like, what? We don't have hormones anymore. How do we even make hormones again? So there's quite a process. And oftentimes women are told, well, you'll just, you'll within 3 months, you should get a period kind of thing. And I've had a woman come to me once and she hadn't had a period for 5 years. So since she came off the pill and didn't know what to do, was beside herself. So I think that the goal, like you said, right, is like bring all those minerals into your diet. Those are the little spark plugs. They're going to get all of the things going, the systems going that you need to ovulate again. And the mitochondria as well, like your ovaries are little mitochondria powerhouses. So they need like vitamins, minerals, and all of the antioxidants. So yes, like I said, I talk a lot about this, in all of my resources and on Instagram as well, too. So I feel like there are lots of ways that you can start the process. It looks different for different people. And also my website is NicoleJardim.com.
So good. Yeah. We'll put all of this in the show notes for you guys so you can find Nicole. Her work is amazing. I mean, I don't know how you manage to put out so much content because it's really good. And it all makes sense. Like there are some people that just like post like a lot of random stuff. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I don't know how to connect a lot of it, but it's all to me kind of like layers of understanding that all, just help you have a better perspective of your health. And again, everything is so bio-individual. So we got to do this work. We got to learn it for ourselves and we got to know how to apply it. And that's why we have these conversations. So Nicole, thank you so much for being with us today. Always good to see you, my friend. We'll have to do another trip. We'll rope Dr. Motley into, bringing his snakes and his, hey. What is that? You're in Cherokee, whatever. I don't know. You guys have to watch this on YouTube to see his outfit.
Courtney is just literally badgering me about.
I can't let
you set yourself up there, buddy.
I mean, hey, I'm a guy full of pattern. I'm a textured person in my emotions. That's how I thrive. And that's what I do. And Courtney is making me second guess who I am. Anyway, Courtney and I get along really well.
Right now. He really is. So gotta
it's
watch
my vibe. Yeah. I really like these kind of shirts. Actually, I may get a new hat, guys. So it's going to be coming up soon too. And nobody cares that I just said that. But
I can't believe you're not wearing a hat.
I love wearing hats.
Like a hat would really complement this outfit.
I do have a really great new hat by my good friend Ashley, and but I'm trying to get confidence. Not confidence. It's just like in the camera. I don't know if my hat will show, but I need to start wearing it because I love wearing hats. Yeah. So for all you guys listening out there, they're going to be like, "That has nothing to do with ovarian health, buddy." You are just
we started there. We may as well just round out this conversation by ending there.
Oh, yes, one of my good friends got me this shirt and I really love it. It's so warm. It's like one of those shirts you can wear like in the wintertime. Seriously, like a little undershirt. And then this one, it's comfy. It's like getting a nice little hug every single time you put it on.
You should be like a fashion blogger.
Summer. Aren't you hot?
okay. So you guys, my buddy Dave, who's here at the house, we have called the studio house. He has it here as, when Dr. Axe is in here doing some recordings and all, their philosophy is keep it as cold as you can keep it because it's better for your immune health. But for me, I'm a thin dude. And so, I mean, like when I walk in, I'm like, good heavens, I need a hot tub. Stat.
Oh,
So anyway, but I'm getting more used to it though. But yeah, Nicole, we're going to have even more fun times. All right. For everybody out there who enjoyed this podcast, I want you guys to like and subscribe, click buttons, give us some comments, get on to Courtney about how she doesn't like my Southwest shirt. I'm going to have to do a little therapy about this. And from all of us here at the Ancient Health Podcast, we love y'all. Thanks, Nicole, for joining us. We'll talk to you guys next time.